Welcome back to Brothers in Boots. My name is Mike, and with me today I have Chris of the W, otherwise known as the Boot Wiki. And in our episode today, we are going to be specifically talking about Chris's boot collection. We have a general outline we're going to go over, but in this you're going to kind of learn his shape, his style, favorite outsoles, favorite heels, favorite brands, what he's looking forward to, what things he wants to try that he hasn't, and what things he's going to avoid at all costs.
Oh,
Alrighty. So where do we want to start with on this? So let's take a look-see here. Let's start with, what do you look for in a last? So throughout your collection, what last style do you think is the most common? Is it kind of, you think it's a Munson based? Are we looking for rounder toes, bump toes, almond toes, chisel toes? Like where do you land in last? Arch support, toe spring, heel height. Like what does it for Chris?
well, a lot of those are a little bit too complex for where I'm at right now. Looking at my overall collection, it's for the most part just an almond toe last. That's what most of my boots are. I can tell you that the most comfortable lasts so far for me have been the Truman 79 last and the last that Bourdon uses for their boots.
Okay, yes, those are both very service boot, cap toe style boots. That I don't know if I'd call that almond. Almond's a little narrower. That's getting into what we like to call the number 3 toe, which is kind of that Munson bumped toe. Maybe not with a huge bump, but that Munson kind of shape. Very service boot.
Yeah, very, very much. I mean, almost my entire collection right now with the 23 pairs is their service boots. I've got one pair of Chukka boots, but they're on the same last as what the rest of my Caswell boots are, which is the Wayne last, which does have a little bit of an almond shape. And then I've got a pair of Chelsea boots from Bourdon, but they're used the same last for all three of their makes.
Okay, yeah, so very service boot, number 3 toe, not really a number 2 toe. Number 2 is what we call like a Packer toe. A little away from Western, a little more. And I wouldn't even call it like dress shoe toe, because dress shoe's got like a real almond. That you see that a lot in like the John Lofgrens. A lot of the John Lofgrens have a very, very almond toe, especially for kind of their service boot style.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, I mean, right now, my buying, how I've been looking at things has really been, if it's from a maker that I've tried, and I know that their last fits me, and just an interesting looking leather, and really more kind of superficial things. Whether like I said, the leather, the color, and then slowly kind of branching out to other brands as I learn my foot more.
Okay. Well, so I mean, and even for those of people that aren't doing those things, right? I mean, there's still lasts that we like the look of and lasts that we don't, right?
Yes.
if we take like mock toes into effect, those have usually what's called a walled toe, which is going to be wider, a little taller. The width of the toe box is going to go all the way back to at least the first joint of the vamp, versus basically just existing to the first joint of the toe, which is what a number 3 toe would do. So there are, and a lot of people incorrectly call walled toes bump toes. They just kind of lump all bump toes together. But we all have an aesthetic we look for, right? Otherwise, you'd have a Thursday Captain, which very much is an almond toe. I don't know if price range really has as much to affect with that, because we all have styles that we look for, right? And leading from last into like the particular shapes that we care for. Some people like bulbous, round heel areas where the heel counter cover, whether it's internal, external, doesn't matter. They like the bigger bulbous ones with like tight clips, and some people like the like floating P&W style, and then some like the much more sleek, narrow, almost sensual that like a Grant Stone diesel would have, which is a very streamlined, no clip, very streamlined heel into what is actually probably a pretty narrow waist, even for like a boondocker style service boot, which is what the diesel is.
No, and that is a boot that I am a big fan of.
Yeah, I mean, and some people like tall toe boxes, some people don't. And the last affects all this, and maybe instead of just like like your favorite last, because for some of us like me, I can tell you what my favorite lasts are. I know them by name. I know who they come from. I know who makes them. I have that part down. So it's one of those things. I ask people the question, and maybe
Yep.
the relevance here is more so on the second portion of that question, which was like what shape sticks out to you, right? Like what do you want your boot to be shaped like? Do you want big, chunky, tanky, kind of P&W style boots, or do you want the more sleek kind of business casual? Now, me knowing you, I know you kind of lean more in the business casual. Like it doesn't want to quite look like it's made by a bespoke maker, but it like a bespoke dress shoe maker, but it does need to be kind of sleeker, more business casual, a little less like I'm big, strong, blue collar worker.
Right. Well, and you're right in that respect, because most of my boots I would wear through my work day, although I work from home most of the time, so I don't get out that much. But I do appreciate a more bulbous boot, but for casual wear,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. Something I would more wear with a pair of jeans.
Yeah,
And like a flannel or something like that.
yeah.
So like my Bordeaux Kano boots have that more bulbous toe.
Yeah, they're a workwear boot. Well, and it's not even just the bulbous toe here. I'm gonna grab an example here. So I'm wearing my Baker's Franks right now, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd use them in this example. But like this is a very workwear inspired custom craft. But if you look at it from the top, even though the toe is bulbous, it's got such an elegant feather line that is very, very close to the edge in such a way that this does look more like a dressier boot, even though it's very clearly workwear inspired. I mean, it's got a nice bulbous heel into a very narrow, elegant clip. Dennis's pattern is evolved from being very back heavy to much more balanced. His heel counters used to come like all the way up to here, and the vamp transition used to be closer. He's got a very oval shaft, which fits a lot of legs. It's still very European. You see American shafts tend to be a little bit more round like this versus oval.
Yep.
But overall, it works very well. And it's definitely American heritage workwear, but it's very elegant. And there's not a huge, I don't have 5-6 millimeters past the edge or double stitch with, big old chunk off the edge. It's a very elegant cordwainer style.
Right.
I showed this in the video I recorded the other day, but you can see the welt transition right there internally. It's a very good welt transition. It's a little bit finger catch, but still a very good one. And he actually takes the full 365 because there's no transition over here. So it's actually, even though it's only 270-degree outsole stitched, it is actually 360 welted on the inside, which is unique, a little different. And that's kind of more what I mean. That big, beefy, chunky form over function style is a combination of extra meat for more resoles, more width rooms so that you could bend your heel in weird places. Just extra tolerances are added in, not for aesthetic reasons that tend to make the boot look a little uglier, but are more function driven. I hate the term form over function, because back in the day, the artisans did both. They could make good looking work boots. I feel like nowadays we get a lot more just really heavy duty work boots that don't look good in a lot of cases. And if that works in your style, it works in your style. It is what it is. Aesthetics are all to the eye of the beholder. None of this is rules written in stone. There's no commandments carved on this. Now, there are some universal ideas of acceptance. The golden ratio is a great example of this. Usually stuff that's built within the golden ratio is very beautiful to the eye. Like a good example is this heel counter to backstay cover is in the golden ratio, but it's the portion of the golden ratio I don't care for as much. I prefer the minor, which is the short portion of the ratio, which is right here, to be the heel counter cover, and the backstay to be the major. This is using the major is the heel counter cover, and the minor is the backstay cover. So this isn't in my preference, but it's still beautiful. Whereas the other day, the video that I recorded that was just me, I showed this against a pair of Roll Club underdogs where it's actually, you know what? Hold on, they're right here. I don't even have to do that. I can just reach over and grab them. Where this is the same golden ratio, but in the opposite direction. I prefer this ratio a little more personally. It's not very European cordwainer, but I prefer this ratio. But they're still both done in the proportions of the golden ratio, which is deemed to be beautiful by the eye. It's just a law of nature. Most things in nature are done in the golden ratio. And that's just a reality, right? Like so, and let's go ahead and I'm going to pull up the first pair that you sent me, which these are the Bourdon, Tucano, and Wicket and Craig Olive H Latigo. It is a toe cap service model here that we're looking at on the screen, and it's chunky workwear, but it's also very elegant. And a couple call outs on it that I can just see by looking at it is, it's got a narrower waist. It doesn't keep the thickness of the waist throughout the way a general work boot normally would. Stitching is done in a more dress fashion for the uppers, even though the lowers are stitched in a more workwear kind of way. And it is coming closer to the stitches than a normal work boot would, but not so much that I would think that it is a dress boot. So it's definitely riding the line between the two. 2-row toe cap, which is perfectly fine. Most work boots actually do a 2-row toe cap, not a 4. That's more of an Iron Ranger thing. It's got a thick midsole, which once again also leads more credence to, because that looks to be at least 10 ounces by looking at it. It's probably closer to 12. The average P&W midsole is an 11 to 12 iron, which is between 14 and 16 ounce. But yeah, I mean, you could tell that they're definitely aesthetic focused, but with workwear concepts. The biggest thing that points them out as being more aesthetic focused is really the upper stitching. It's done in a very dress shoe kind of way versus the traditional way you would sew a work boot in that area.
Right. A little thinner thread, a little closer SPI.
They did the stitching just doesn't match in any way, shape, or form. You generally, when you have a work boot, it's 4 rows of stitching and they follow a particular pattern. They don't usually have stitches that run out in the middle of the other side of the eyelet. Usually the piece that holds the eyelet in place is a lot more concise, close together, and runs one direction across with a completely separate set of stitches, keeping everything together and not making it a part of making the quarters touch the vamp or the uppers touch the vamp. Quarters is another name for uppers. Sorry. I'm going to interchange terms a little bit here. Overall, it's a nice pair of boots. I like the really thick eyelets. That's definitely workwear inspired for thicker laces. Does look like it is using the cheaper, more bendable eyelets. Really wish they would switch to the stronger, beefy boys. So, have they? Okay.
Yeah, well, at least on the speed hooks he did. I don't know if he's upgraded the eyelets, but the speed hooks were a little bit too thin. Actually, one of mine did break, and he offered to repair it, and I just told him, don't worry about it. I'll get them. I want to learn how to fix it, so I'll do that myself. But one of the things I did want to bring up is, a lot of my drawer prior experience with boots, was in the military. I was an MP in the National Guard, military police, and yes, we were soldiers, and this was back in the 90s, so we still had the black full grain boots, and we had to keep those looking really nice. And I did a lot of parade duty, and where we had to have really nice looking uniforms. We always had to, even in basic training, we had to have our uniforms pressed, our boots shined. I got jump boots when I could, because those look really nice with the uniform. We were actually allowed to wear boots with our class A's with certain duties, jump boots. And so if you look at like these Bourdons, they're very close to what a jump boot would look like. I mean, they're stitched down, which our jump boots weren't stitched down, but the aesthetic overall, you can see a lot of the similarities.
Yeah, they're croc and jump boot / service boot. Definitely service boot inspired.
Yes, exactly. And so that's kind of the draw for me in the boots, and less so to the really chonky, P&W boots with the more work inspired leathers. I'm drawn to, much more of the, also unique leathers, but initially a lot of the things that you can shine and look really nice and have that more dressy appeal.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I am probably the king of unique leathers.
Yes, absolutely.
So
now this Bourdon boot. So some of the things I like about it is really that thick sole. There is that double shank in there, both the leather and the steel shank. You probably can't see it in the picture, but we do show it in our interview with Andres from Bordeaux. So it provides a lot of support underfoot. But the leather on the upper is more like what you would find on other dress type boots. It is a thinner leather.
Yeah,
So
this one
there's
looks like in the picture about 4 to 5, maybe 5.5 ounce at most.
Yes, exactly. So there's not an excessive break-in period for it. It's pretty comfortable right out of the gate. One of the things you're going to notice as Mike shows the pictures of my various boots is I have a penchant for olive. So you're going to see a theme here. I don't have all olive boots, but those are my favorite ones.
Hey,
so I don't know.
I like green.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm more of a blue guy personally, but.
Well, I love blue too. It's a little harder to find. So
not when you supply your own leather, it ain't.
Well, yes, you're right. I don't know if you want to take the opportunity now to kind of talk about what my collection strategy is.
Yeah. That's good.
Okay. So my strategy at the moment is really still is pretty basic, but to keep it limited to 35 pairs of boots, heritage boots. I don't have a particular any models called out, but what I am limiting it to is 5 pairs of brown, 5 pairs of tan, 5 pairs of olive/green, 5 pairs of blue, 5 burgundy, 5 gray, and 5 other/wild card. So my 1 pair of black boots is in that wild card. Anything that's an overage from those categories, I would consider it a wild card. And where I'm at right now is I have 6 pairs of brown, so that would count against the wild card. 5 pairs of tan, 5 pairs of olive, 1 pair of blue, 3 pairs of burgundy, 2 pairs of gray, and then the 1 pair of black that's in that other wild card. And as far as styles of boots that are in that, for the most part, they are plain toe service boots are the majority of that. I think I've got 5 or 6 cap toe service boots, 1 pair of Chukka boots, and 1 pair of Chelsea boots. So I've got a total of 23 boots right now, with what I think 5 more on order.
There you go. Now you're just missing a mock toe.
Yes.
Oh, and don't forget a shinky bootine. You definitely need your shinky bootine.
Yes, that's it. Going to be in the wish list. It probably won't happen this year, but if I get closer to that 35, and I will be selling off some of I think 3 right now in that 23. So that'll make room for some other ones. But yeah, in learning what I do like, I definitely am, kind of expanding my circle. So my circle has started pretty narrow, pretty small. And as I get more experience, that circle is getting bigger. And I think before we did the show, I told you, like a Chukka boot, I didn't like Chukkas at all. But I did get the 1 pair that I have. And after wearing it, I have gotten an appreciation for it. And so it's like, okay, I don't mind. I'm not going to build a huge collection of Chukkas, but I probably will buy 1 more Chukka, just that traditional. I'll probably get a rough out in that tan color, but with a more traditional sole instead of the crepe sole, but to have that kind of spring looking boot.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
Like just a beefier version of the Clark Desert boot.
Yeah,
to have kind of that classic.
And that's the thing too, right? That a lot of people don't understand. Like, you don't know till you know. Not everyone has the means to do a lot of trying, and if that's the case, you've got to try to research to the best of your ability. But you don't know till you know. Very rarely in people's boot journey, especially as people start calling them collections, are the initial 5 things they ordered kept long term. They're either sold off quickly or they become a wall ornament or a decoration, because they generally don't get worn. Because when you start, you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of this takes figuring out. Outsoles are a perfect example of this. I can tell you now which outsoles I will never buy a pair of boots in, and I can tell you which outsoles I will fight for to have if I have to provide them to the manufacturer myself. And that's just kind of some of the reality of it. People think they want the V100 lug till they try it, and either they do or they don't. A huge divisive one is the 430 mini lug. I have a hatred for that outsole. It feels terrible under feet. I can feel all the individual lugs. I absolutely hate the 430. If something only comes in a 430, I will not buy it. No ifs, no ands, no buts. I cannot stand that outsole. And the crepe wedge sole is up there on the list for me as well. I own 2 in that sole that I have tried to make work, and some days they're fine. Other days I can wear them for 10 minutes and I'm ready to throw them in the trash can. So it's just one of those realities that you don't know until you try it, right? And some of this stuff takes time. Like for example, do you have any outsoles you hate that you can't stand?
Not yet. And I mean, I've got a fair amount of outsoles now. Just going into my boot journey, I would have told you I would have wanted, Commando lug sole. But after getting some of the other soles, like just a micro studded sole, and not having it collect all the dirt and gunk, I've gained an appreciation for soles like that versus the lug soles. It's not that I still don't like the lug soles, but my yard, whenever it rains, when I get out of my car, a lot of times I have to walk in the yard and I get mud in my boots. And then, my wife isn't happy when I track mud in the house. And,
yep. Stepping dog poo. Yep. All kinds of stuff. Like
yeah.
that. I'm same thing.
Exactly.
My work pairs have the lug soles on them, but I tend to gravitate towards either a V700, a V705, or a Dr. Soul's Super Grip.
Yes. Now, I very much like the Eugene sole that's on the Trumans. And that's just... it's a comfortable sole for me, and it nothing sticks in it because there's nothing for it to stick into.
Yeah, it's a lot like the V-Bar, which is, I mean, to be fair, the V-Bar is basically just like an Alden neoprene court sole, just with a couple of ridges that wear out pretty quickly. It operates off all the same basic principles. So,
yeah, the only sole that I'm probably not the biggest fan of, and it's not for the reason you would think, is just a straight leather sole. And it's not that they're not comfortable, but we've talked about it in other videos. My feet are very sensitive, which is kind of funny because I don't notice that on the one sole that you talked about you didn't like.
430, the mini lug.
The 430, because I do have a 430 on one of my Bordeaux's, and I haven't noticed that. But, leather soles, you usually don't have a midsole where it's a very thin midsole. And so I feel the ground. And, if I step on a rock or something like that, that is almost painful for me. So I don't like just a flat out leather sole, only because of that reason.
Yep. Sounds like you need to get a Baker's leather sole. You won't feel that at all, let me tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Any particular preferences with heels? Heels is another very divisive one. People either find them too feminine, too manly, too extreme. I know, most people are in the especially new boot owners are still in their phase where everything's got to be a block heel. Everything else is for girlies, except for when you get into a high arch boot that if you put a block heel on it, it would look like a woman's platform shoe versus a tapered heel that definitely does not.
I will say I don't have anything other than a block heel at the moment, but I'm not opposed to anything else anymore. Initially, I absolutely was in that camp of, wow, that looks feminine, and I don't understand it. But talking with you and watching your video on the heels, it's like understanding the reasoning behind why they are that way. It's like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Well, and then the other thing is, through the Boot Wiki and studying history, boot heels were a men's thing long before they were ever a women's thing.
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No, so,
100%.
They became a feminine thing, but they didn't start that way. So if you understand the history behind it and then understand the purpose and how the boot heels got their shapes and how they help you, for me, then that becomes, I don't care what other people think about it. If it's going to help me out in a particular situation, then I'll get it. I just haven't ordered any pairs of boots like that yet.
Yep. And even in the smaller heel stuff, you can't do a full-on logger, but you can do a spoon bevel dress woodsman or a Cuban / dogger, no problem in it. That is something that can be done. A lot of people are doing a specialty one that they like these days called a blogger. Custom Crafts Cuban heel is very close to a blogger. A blogger wouldn't quite be this extreme. Like this would be out a little bit more, but you put just a little bit of taper into what would otherwise be a block heel.
But with that one, with the taper going in and coming back out, I mean,
Yeah.
that doesn't have what you would traditionally think of as a feminine profile.
Correct. Yeah. That's why people like it. They call it the blogger. It's a logger. It's a block logger.
Yeah, I like that. And I do know, if you're a little smaller in stature, having that taller heel can help with that when you're out and about.
Yep.
That's not so much of an issue for me. I'm just a little bit shy of 6 feet. So across the, all of the public, I'm taller than most people out there. So that's not been a reason to look at a taller heel.
I mean,
but it is definitely something to consider.
No, I mean, and heel heights are based off the lasts themselves, so obviously
Yes.
that plays a factor into it. But overall, it's just, one of those realities that anyone that's walked with a taper heel, that's given the taper heel a chance, 9 times out of 10 finds they like the gait and the movement in it better, because it makes more anatomical sense, especially because a lot of people don't balance their blocks right. They make them flat. When a block heel, especially a block heel that's got a drawn out back edge, has to have an 1/8 inch raise from the front to the back. So the front needs to make contact with the ground, where the back of the heel needs to be raised up 1/8 of an inch to let that block rotate correctly. Otherwise, you'll very quickly walk that ledge in, and that's where you get that really ugly ledge where people are like, man, I walk funny. No, your heel just wasn't set on right to roll properly through walking. Because nothing about that's what the taper's there for, is to, 1, reduce weight, but number 2, roll through walking correctly. Right? That's its purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the other thing is, I am just now starting to get into more MTO, true MTO boots, where getting different style heels is even an option.
That's a good point.
Yeah, if you look across the majority of my collection, it's been effectively ready to wear boots, or the heel options have been either very limited or non-existent. I think like some of the Caswell MTO boots I have, the only MTO option for those, it was more of a GMTO, was what sole. It had like 2 sole options, but no heel option. The Bordeaux's, when I got them, they did not have heel options. They do now. So you can get 2 other options. And I think even the Trumans didn't have, they might have with the vintage horse rump, but when I got my smoky waxed mohawk, I don't believe there was another option. I could be wrong. That's been a year and a half ago.
I don't remember them having too many options from that perspective. I think the majority of Truman has been most of that block, which once again, it is fine. In a lot of your ready to wear stuff, they're going to take the safest choice. And in modern examples, the block heel is going to be the safest choice from that aspect, just because of the I'm a manly man version of it. Don't need me no high heel. But once again, not really its purpose.
Right. And I think it's also a comfort level. That's what you're used to seeing. That's what you're used to wearing. A lot of people don't want to go outside of their own little comfort zone. In the fact that, if you look at the fact that the most popular boot colors are brown and black, people aren't getting outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Like when like guys do runs of boots to sell, like GMTOs and stuff, you notice 9 times out of 10 there'll be 3 colors, some form of black, some form of darker brown, and maybe either a medium brown or a natural. And those are usually the 3 colors you'll get. Or you'll get a black, a medium brown, and a natural. Natural's made a pretty big comeback in the last couple of years, but generally speaking, yeah, you're lucky to get more than those 3 colors. Some kind of black, some kind of brown, some kind of natural, or a very light tan. Yes. Same in the dress shoe world too. Except dress shoe world will include a burgundy or an oxblood.
Right. Yeah, that's very traditional. And that even goes all the way down to the welt and the midsole too. It's been interesting watching Caswell MTO pictures of from their hand welted line. You have like 33 plus options of leather. You can do a natural, a brown, or a black midsole and welt, and almost all the pictures I've seen come back are dark brown and black on the midsole and the welt. Yeah. And you can do contrasting stitching, and hardly anybody does contrasting stitching. And even the leathers, there's a lot of great leathers out there, but I don't know that I've seen too many people go with some of the more out there leathers that Kevin has offered.
Yeah,
So
basically making this stuff that he doesn't offer anymore and is ready to wear line, more or less.
right. Well, he also then orders a lot of, small quantity leathers that are just kind of. Kevin is a leather guy. I mean, he just loves cool leathers, and so if he sees a couple of hides out there from A Crack or Tannery Row or something like that, he'll order them and put them in the hand welted line, and hoping that somebody else is interested in them as as much as he was. And there's been some really cool boots that have come out of there. But I did ask him once. It's like, you've done a lot more MTO boots than what you had pictures of. It's like, why don't we see them? And he's like, well, there's only so many pictures of a brown boot you can show. and he was being a bit tongue in cheek with that. But he's right in that, a lot of the makeups haven't been earth shattering or anything. They've been, of cool leathers, but it's been a brown version of that. And, so, I mean, you show brown kudu versus brown horse rump versus brown CF Stead suede. For the most part, there's not much differentiation between them.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Well, I shouldn't even say it makes sense. I mean, even CF Stead is notorious for having 27 different shades of brown.
Yes. And there's a buddy of mine on one of the discords that's all he owns is like 20 something, pairs of brown boots. It's like, that's great. If that's what you like, that I support you 100%, but
be adventurous, there are some other, try some other things,
other colors.
If you're going to get to a number like 25, you probably should experiment a little bit. Like if you're like 7 or less and brown's your thing, cool. When you crack 15, 20, 25, it's time to try some other stuff. I'm struggling to think of how you'd have 25 different pairs of brown boots that would actually have pairs that aren't literally like copies with a slightly different shade of brown, which after 3 years of wear will probably be the same shade of brown.
Yeah, that's true.
So
and there's only so many different leathers and.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that I would like to showcase. That's so for peeling back the curtain for everybody a little bit. Part of this is kind of a little bit of a test video to see how well this goes of being able to, 1, talk to people about their collections, number 2, rate people's collections, and number 3, use as an opportunity to be in like a year, like, hey, here's where my collection's at after a year, so people can see how the leathers age. Because that's one thing I feel that YouTube is heavily missing, is you see a lot of people unboxing and showing off new boots. Very rarely are we seeing boots with 1,000 miles on them after 2 or 3 years of wear. Hoping to see if maybe through this series and maybe even through a couple of viewers rectify some of that a little bit and kind of show off some stuff of what people can expect their things to look like after 4 or 5 years. A lot of people buy boots hoping that they can maintain the like new color till the end of their time, and that's not the joys of leather. Just buy patent leather if you're going to do that. There's no reason to mess up a good veg tan, keeping it permanently dyed nothing but dark, void light escaping black.
Well, the other thing that this could help document too is, each one of us is at a little bit different time and place in our boot collecting. I'm only right at 2 years in. And so this is kind of a snapshot of, where I'm at, where my collection's at, where my thoughts are. You're a few years more advanced than me, and so your collection is, I think, shows that, a lot more versatility than what mine does, because you've experienced a lot of the same things I already have, potentially even around the same time, and have progressed beyond that. You've gotten bored with, a bunch of pairs of brown boots.
I don't even own that many pairs of brown boots, to be entirely honest. I think I that died for me in my mid 20, like the 2013, 2014, 2015 timeframe, when I got tired of brown dress shoes. So I think that phase might have died for me before I even made it to boots in 2018. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny you bring that up, because for me it was black. I always wore black boots and black shoes,
black dress shoes. That's one thing. Besides funerals and weddings, and I have one pair of black dress shoes for funerals and weddings. And even then, I don't know if I would do that anymore. I think my funerals and weddings boots will be my creosote 7s and blue shinky shell, to be 100% honest.
Yeah,
that's probably going to be my plan going forward.
Yes, and I'm a lot more like that too. That's why I only have the one pair of black boots, and I did not intend to ever buy another pair of black boots. But I do have a pair of Blackbird black boots on the way, but that's because I'm using them for something else. I mean, I want
Yeah.
to experience them, but it is their most popular boot.
No, no, no doubt.
That's so. Like I said, that's more for an example, and you'll see some stuff from me in the future on some different platforms about that boot and another pair that I have coming from them.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the next pair of boots on your list. So we've got these jungle green kangaroo diesels. I actually had a pair of these that I sold as well. Big fan of kangaroo. I'll probably only ever own another pair of kangaroo boots if I get them made through Flora.
Yes, yeah. I actually got as a second. They were on my list of boots to buy, but when they popped up as a Grant Stone second, you can't pass that up. About the only thing I can tell why they were a second is I think somebody had tried them on. There were some already some creasing in the vamp and a little bit of scuff on the sole. But other than that, they're near perfect, and I absolutely love them. They are my second pair of kangaroo boots from Grant Stone. I have a pair of Edward boots that are in the rust kangaroo, and I find I just don't really love the Edward boot itself. I much prefer the diesel boot with the bigger eyelets and speed hooks, the external counter cover. Now, one thing I did discover with the kangaroo boots, and this is a little bit more so with the Edward than these jungle diesels, is my feet get cold in them when I wear them in the winter. In fact, I could not wear them in the winter in the colder weather. But conversely, what that makes them is an excellent temperate weather boot.
Yeah.
So when it's warmer out, when another boot might be a little bit too warm to wear, these have been absolutely perfect.
Yeah,
and the
kangaroo's
color,
thin. The kip lining's a little bit more breathable. The kangaroo itself won't be the most breathable because there's no pores on it. Kangaroos don't have sweat pores, so it's got the density of shell cordovan, but that kip liner and the thinner nature and lighter nature of the kangaroo will definitely play into that.
Yes, absolutely. And the fit is the Grant Stone fit, which fits me very well. I have just a slight bit of lateral move in the toe box, but it fits me almost perfectly through the heel and through the waist. So that's it's nothing that I notice until I put on, say, like Truman, when it really has almost a glove fit all the way through the boot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of Truman, let's talk about that pair. I've got that up next. That's the Truman, their regular cap toe model in the 79 last. I think you said this was vintage green.
It's a vintage military horse rump. There actually is a story
which
behind
brand of horse rump? Is this Merriam or is it like Chloe?
No, this is actually Guidi.
Hmm.
So they don't advertise that on those.
Yep.
Galudi? Okay.
Yeah, they it's Rosalani Galudi or Guidi. It might be Guidi. Okay. I can't remember. But yes, a lot of people know their Coletta, their reverse Coletta, where people get the like wavy stuff in the blues, purples, and blacks. Their Coletta horse rump is extremely popular.
Yeah, I love this horse rump. It is just it's just got a great feel to it. It's soft. It smells fantastic. And the story behind this was, I first saw these on Instagram right as they were doing an MTO in 2022 or towards the end of it. And I wasn't able to buy a pair of them. I'd already, bought a couple other pairs of boots and was tapped. But I just absolutely love the color. And so I went back through their Instagram and found that they only do this like once a year. And it only released it like 2 other times prior to this, maybe 3. And so I was actively, waiting for them to come out with this. And as soon as they came out with it in the fall of 2023, I ordered it, jumped right on it, got them, and, could not be happier with a pair of boots. Now it was a complete MTO so that, I could get the welt that I wanted, get the sole that I wanted. It did come with the matching leather tongue, which I do prefer on a boot. In fact, I've passed over some of Truman's MTOs because they didn't have the matching leather tongue.
Yeah, they
And I
got to get
didn't
it.
care.
They got to get it thin enough. If it's not thin enough or
Yes,
easily splittable, they go with a leather that's very similar to what the other P&Ws use.
correct. Now, I have since gotten over my absolutely refusing to buy a pair of boots with a different leather tongue. Um, so that would not be a showstopper for me in the future. But yeah, these are I think they're stunning boots.
They
And
are.
it's
They're
the
that green that's almost gray because a lot of like really dark gray boots have almost a green hue to them, and that's kind of straddling the line between green and gray.
yes, yeah, and what they've named it the military vintage horse rump really does describe how it looks. It does kind of have that vintage look, almost of like a faded canvas.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like a desert jeep or a military jeep that's been sitting in the desert for 20 years, not moving.
Yes, absolutely. And the Trumans. One of the things I like too is they do have a thicker midsole than what comes on traditional service style boots from any of the other manufacturers that I bought from, other than Bordeaux. They're not quite as thick as Bordeaux's, but they are thicker than Grandstone or Caswell or Helm or anybody else. So it gives a lot of meat underfoot and just feels very sturdy.
Yeah.
And almost gives me, when I'm walking in them, it's kind of like you have to push a little bit more with your toes, but it almost gives you like a little spring back. At least that's kind of how I feel. You know, that could be just psychosomatic.
Couldn't tell you. I noticed thicker midsoles tend to move a little easier, especially after break in. They're a little bit more cushy. You sink into them a little bit more. They're a little more bouncy. But they do take more break-ins, so that's not something everyone's up for. But I'm a fan of 10 iron plus, which is 12 ounce or more midsoles personally.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that kind of goes to something we'll talk about a little bit we get towards the end. When I was at the Stitch Down boot camp, Tony from Wyatt Dad hit me up. I'd met him in the line for the Viberg.
The seconds tent. Yeah.
The seconds tent. I was manning it, trying to keep everybody from coming in and getting ahead, trying to get ahead of the line. But later in the boot camp, he said, if you ever get anything resold, get a double midsole. He said anybody that is over 200 pounds, you will appreciate that extra leather in there. And so the Bordeaux's and the Trumans, probably the thickest midsoles I can get without truly getting a double midsole.
Well, they are double midsoles. I mean, a lot that would be the same. So I get double midsoles on all my dress shoes, and double midsoles on dress shoes are usually like 5 to 6 irons. So you're talking 10 to 12, which is pretty on par. So, and now Frank's will do double 11 iron midsoles, but you probably need to be over 250 to even consider that.
Oh, I am. So
that's some break-in time.
Yeah.
So you need some weight to force that into place.
Yeah, the advantage, for me, for a break-in, and maybe a disadvantage as well, is the fact that I do work from home, so it's not like I'm walking miles a day. So I can break things in. The downside is it takes a lot longer to break it in. So even though I have a pair of boots that feels perfectly comfortable wearing it around the house, if I go out somewhere and walk for hours, I've had at least 2 pairs of boots start to cause me problems after a couple of hours. And with one of them absolutely just ending my day because I thought they were broken in. And by the time I could barely walk in them, I was on the other side of a fairground and had to walk all the way back to my car. And that was very, very painful. Lesson learned, though.
Yeah. I'm the crazy person. Like, a new pair of boots I haven't broken in yet. Let's wear them to the airport and do a 10-hour day in them.
Yeah. Well, that one day, kind of broke me of that.
It does happen. Yeah. I've had some misadventures doing that. It generally hasn't been too bad. I think it was a pair of Imperiums that I found had like a bit of a slalom to the inside of it that I had to put a Spinco insert in just because the hand welted. I don't think the cavity got filled correctly. or didn't get filled tight enough, and you got that kind of Goodyear welted U-boat, U shape in the bottom of it, where my pinky toe and big toe were sitting on the much harder piece while the rest of the foot was sinking in, and my foot hates that with passion. I ended up selling that pair off later just because while I loved the Cloudburst Waxy Kudu, that last just wasn't for me. Like when I picked the last out, I picked one that looked like it had a lot of arch support, a tall heel. I got something that had like tons of toe spring, not a tall heel, no arch support. I had to make an arch support piece for it. The guy that got him loved him. And some of that might be for the, like, actually I took one of Dale's 12 ounce insoles and actually with a bunch of my leatherworking tools carved in was essentially an arch support lineman shank that I glued on the inside of it. So
nice. Yeah, for me it was a pair of Grant Stone. It was their Diesel and Earth with that leather counter, and so it was the counter that hadn't broke in yet. The rest of the boot was fine, but my heel just was. I was in serious pain. Like I said, I could barely walk by the time that I got back to the car. You should have seen how I was
medics
walking.
In the rescue.
Like, exactly. I'm like walking all like stiff-legged and trying not to bend my feet.
Getting on your tiptoes, leaning forward.
Yes, it was brutal.
Yeah. All right, let's get on to this last pair that we got here, and this is the Caswell in olive waxed flesh with a split swelt.
And this is Caswell's Carver model. It's a lace to toe, which this is actually a sample. And so there's a story behind this too. It went up on the site, for sale, and I really wanted to buy it. And it kind of hung out there for a while. It was like about 2 months. And by the time I was in position to buy it, it got sold. And I mean, it sold like a week before I was in a position to buy it. So I'm like, well, I'll maybe get an MTO model, or I'll get one of the Carver boots, in just a different leather. And apparently the gentleman that bought it, I can't remember if it was too big or too small for him, but about a month ago it popped up on eBay, and I made him an offer and he accepted it. So I ultimately got this pair of boots that I had been eyeing for probably a few months, and I had seen it as a sample before Kevin put it on sale as well. So I'd been wanting it for probably 6 months or so before they were sold. And this is on the Wayne last, which Caswell doesn't make boots in anymore just because it was a little too narrow for a lot of people's feet.
Especially it's one that you can see it in the pictures.
Exactly. Yes, but I really love this pair of boots, and it's like I said, it's in that olive color, which I definitely gravitate towards. Which this is a hill I'll die on. That olive is more versatile than black and brown.
Oh, 100%, 100% agree. Olive is probably the most universal color. I can't think of a single color you can't. This is a pretty dark olive. If it was a lighter olive, it'd be even better. But I can't think of a single like a lighter olive color that doesn't go with basically everything. I can find things that don't go with brown and black. 100%.
Yep, 100%. And it's my first lace to toe boot. So this is a monkey boot, but it is a lace to toe, and
it's definitely more of a lace to toe pattern. A monkey boot would have 2 more eyelets on it. You could do a monkey lace toe style, but it'd have 2 more eyelets on it than this.
Correct. And so, after having this for a couple of weeks, I don't know that I would go with a monkey toe. I probably will eventually, but this has satiated my need for a lace to toe for a while. Now, in saying that, I have 2 more Caswell Carver lace to toes on order in different leathers.
Yeah, that's always a thing. And it's one of those realities that, like I said, I found a strong appreciation for both styles, just the regular monkey and the lace to toe pattern monkey. They're some of my favorites, and the extra 2 eyelets really do help a lot, especially if you want to have different thicknesses of socks. Like the monkeys are super versatile between the seasons to have much thinner socks in the summer and much thicker socks in the winter, which with any service boot or plain toe model, you can't do. A lot of times certain levels of thickness or putting an extra, wool insole in to protect you from the leather sucking all the heat out is not a lot of times possible if the fit is correct. But in a monkey boot and some lace to toes, that's almost always possible. So
very good. That's something to keep in mind when I do, because I will order a monkey boot eventually, just to experience it. Because that's what we collectors do. Got to experience everything.
Yeah. Well, once again, you don't know until you know.
Yes.
It sucks too, because all this stuff is enough money that like you've got to go in with the mindset that like I'm gonna buy this. It's somewhere between $400 and $800 depending on the brand, and be lucky if I get half my money back after I try it. Right.
Oh yeah. And the smaller the brand, the less you do get back in the used market.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just one of those realities. But as you try stuff, you kind of figure out where you land, what you like, what you don't like. There might be a style and aesthetic you absolutely love but can't stand to wear. And that's the best thing to identify.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean it's always one of those things. I know. Like I have I don't know if these days my collection has like an overall aesthetic that it lines up with. It's quite obvious that yours is definitely service boot oriented. I would say about half mine's still service boot oriented, but I would say my collection these days could probably most easily be categorized as wild.
Right.
Stuff you don't usually see.
And you know what? I am definitely headed that way. I started heavily in the plain toe service boots at first, and then have expanded on the cap toe service boots. And I like the cap toes for more casual aesthetics. But I will very shortly have 3 pairs of these lace to toes. Have plans on getting some mock toes and some other pairs in exactly what you were saying. I started off safe. And as I've experienced those, there's a lot of things that I was drawn to initially that now I kind of find boring.
Yeah. And that's always going to be the case. Like once you've checked enough boxes, you don't want to look back at it again. I mean, that's a very real reality. It's one of the reasons why, in general, I am a big advocate of just because you really love a boot, don't buy it in 2 more colors. Save those other 2 colors you want for a different style that you're going to want later.
Yes.
That's just the reality of it.
I will tell you, virtually nobody's going to take that advice.
Nope, I didn't even take it. I did the same thing. The people after me will do the exact same thing. No one's ever going to take the advice, but it's advice they'll look back on 40 pairs in and be like, damn, now I've got like 20 pairs to sell. Should have listened to Mike when he said that.
Yes, 100%. 100% agree.
Yeah.
I remember that advice early on. It was exactly that. Don't go even the same brand. Don't go 6, 7 pairs of boots in, if you don't really know what you're doing because of that.
Well, and the weights have gotten so bad. When I started in 2018, even though I don't have a lot of those boots from that time frame, just getting the whole fit thing figured out, it was like maybe 6 weeks on a wait for a fully MTO boot from White's, Nick's, Frank's, stuff like that. Like it wasn't a super long wait. Like even guys like Truman, this would have been right around the time they were just getting to I can't remember if they're in Sandy or Eugene. I think they might be in Eugene. Wherever city they landed out in Oregon, they were still leaving Boulder at that time. Their weights weren't super huge. Like you could get a custom, like I want this MTO pair in 4 to 6 weeks. We ain't seen time frames like that, nor will we potentially ever see time frames like that again. Honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, most of these companies would probably start going out of business before they ever got that slow again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, Truman even, they're trying to do the ready to wear and build stock boots. I know they've done some MTOs through this spring and summer, but I think that was just to bring in those guys that wanted to get something that
satiate
they weren't
those that aren't in ready to wear anymore. I mean, Truman used to do a
right.
monthly MTO. Like you go back to 2020,
Oh yeah,
they had a different MTO over every month.
oh yeah, yep, absolutely.
So
Yeah,
it's slow. It takes up time. It's not necessarily the most advantageous for business. You've got to figure out where your efficiencies lie. And part
right.
of being super custom and super customizable comes with an extra price tag. Simple as that.
Yes. Yep. Well, and pretty much every maker I've talked to that is trying to straddle that line or make the transition from MTO to ready to wear, you know, they say MTO is a big pain in the butt.
Oh yeah. If you get workers that aren't paying attention, they're not checking the sheet. You know, you do 3 of the same thing in a row. You miss it on the 4th one. Well, toss those uppers out and start over again. A lot of these mistakes aren't simple to fix. And there's the funniest thing is one of the worst mistakes they can make is doing the wrong heel profile. Because the wrong heel profile might make you replace the midsole. If you've got to replace the midsole on a ton of boots, if they're stitched down or not Goodyear welted, means a ton of rework. And it's almost faster at that point to make that as a pair of seconds and build a new pair. Quite simply. So.
Believe that.
Mm-hmm. It's a real deal. And we're seeing it across the board. There's I'm not going to name the names, but there's a couple bespoke cowboy boot shops that are trying to, work their way more into like streamlined MTO models and less fully bespoke, just to try to kind of up their volume a little bit. So like we're seeing the whole spectrum at this point slide down, while some brands are trying to slide up the spectrum, and we'll see kind of how well the slide up the spectrum goes. I haven't seen too many have huge success with trying to add more and more customizable options and get even deeper into customizations. I think the main test on the market right now would be Brandl. They're probably the first that's really trying to up the customization game.
Right. But I have not heard. I don't think
any of them been delivered yet.
No, I am 99.9% sure that none of them have been delivered yet.
Is what it is. I mean, it's just one of those realities. So, all right, let's move on to the next thing. What is the favorite pair of boots you are looking forward to and their maker? I'll go ahead and pull a picture up here.
Well, the one I do have one pair right now that I'm absolutely looking forward to is they're from Caswell Boots. They're from their hand welted line, which is made in Indonesia. They are the Clover boot that is in Galoon, sand, wild boar. You've got that picture pulled up, correct? Yep. So I am really looking forward to this pair of boots. I kind of pulled the trigger on it a little sooner than what I was going to, because there was another gentleman that had bought the boar from Caswell to have it hand welted. And I was concerned that once the Indonesians hand welted his boot, that they wouldn't want to welt another pair in wild boar. So I made sure my order went in at the same time. I don't know how true it is, but I have heard that the wild boar, at least some of the older Galoon tannages, was very difficult to last. OSB, Oak Street Boots, did run of wild boar, and from what I understand, they said that they will never do that again because of the problems that they had in lasting.
Yeah, it doesn't last flat, tears pretty easy, stuff like that.
Yes. So I do believe that Ed has been able to alleviate some of those problems through the tanning process. I haven't heard back one way or the other if the Indonesian maker had any issues lasting these. If you go to Caswell's Instagram site, you'll see the other pair on there, and I think by the time this goes to air, my pair should also be seen there as well. So you can see these have the double midsole, so that'll be my first experience with that much leather underfoot. So we'll see how that goes. But for me, this is going to be my work boot. Not that I do that much, but I do occasionally go into the data center, like what you do. And from what I understand, wild boar is incredibly tough. So we'll see.
Cool. Yeah, it's a lace to toe style model.
Yes.
Well, like I said, we'll see. I've seen some dress boots made out of boar before, but boar isn't common just due to its tendency to want to tear across its different hair follicles. So I'll be interested to see how it breaks in. I mean, the pair looks good. Sand is the perfect representation of the color, especially because, boar does not have a very smooth, flat, even surface. So sand is kind of the perfect word to use.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll kind of see how it goes. It's got a good toe shape. Hopefully it fits. Have you used that last in that hand welted line that one's in?
I have tried the Morris last before. Okay. So I know that it fits. The size should fit. And that was the other reason why I did get it as a lace to toe for my first boot in the Morris last.
Lots of maneuverability. Yep.
Exactly. One of the things that when I was talking to Kevin about that, he said the Morris last is a little bit wider than the Wayne last. It's, similar kind of shape to the Wayne last. But he's, depending on what leather has been lasted, he personally there's been some 11s that have fit and some 11.5s that have fit fine. So, but I think for my foot and the head shape, going down a half size from Brannick, is the right choice.
Cool. Like I said, I think Dale's doing a video on those, and then you should have them back in the next week or two. So we could probably do a follow-up on that, on what you think on those. Maybe.
Yeah, I haven't seen them yet. I had Kevin. Yeah, Kevin sent them directly to Dale for the video. So I think Dale's be shooting his video here shortly, and I'll hopefully have these in the next week or so.
Perfect. Yep. Alrighty. So what do you want to try that you don't currently have?
Oh, there's a whole list of stuff that I want to try.
What's the main thing you want to try that you don't currently have? Is it maybe a mock toe? Is it maybe a monkey boot? Is it shell cordovan?
You know what? Honestly, shell cordovan is not on my list of things to try in my near future.
I don't believe the price and the stiffness is definitely a deterrent.
Yeah, the other thing is I'm a bit of a contrarian. And so when everybody is like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, there's part of me that just want to say, like, I don't want to be part of your club. I want to be part of my own little club that's finding the weird stuff out here that, nobody is talking about. So that's part of it too with shell, in addition to the price. And yeah, shell looks nice, but so you have a lack of, it creases differently and it can be shiny. I'm more, look at this wild boar. The wild boar is going to be the opposite of that. It's not going to be shiny at all, but it's different. And so I'm much more drawn to something like that. Now I say that some of the shell that I've seen, like the Ricardo stuff, I could see myself getting a, yes, exactly. That is enough different, but I want to make sure that I really understand what I like before I spend that kind of money on a boot, because I want that to be a forever boot for me.
Yeah, no, and like while Ricardo and Shinky and some of those aren't too bad, being able to make a pair for $600 to $800, we start talking about like Horween, that's almost double the price of the other guys. You're looking easy $1,200 to $1,400 when we get into Horween. So that it's a wise choice. The only thing really more expensive than shell that's regularly used is Brosaurus crocodile, which is saltwater croc. It's about double the price of Horween shell cordovan. So it's one of those things. So what we didn't get, so we've known that shell cordovan right now is something you'll avoid at all costs. So we got what you'll avoid at all costs, but what are you looking forward to? Like, what's the thing that you haven't tried, that you don't have yet, that you're looking forward to trying the most?
So a mock toe boot is definitely one of those. And I traditionally have not liked mock toes, but I got a try-on boot from Kevin that was of Caswell, that was in a Merriam TPR horse rump, and it was just the coloring and the way that it looked, and trying it on, I really was drawn to it, and very similar to the Chukka boots. It was something I just had to experience first. In fact, I may offer him, hey, if you're going to sell that pair, or, maybe I'll buy you another pair for a try-on boot and you send me those, because I just really like the coloring on those. It was kind of it was a brown color, but it was multi-tonal.
Yeah,
so it wasn't just.
Yeah, it's most likely they're Tuscanello. It's either Tuscanello or Macchiato.
Yeah. No, it was the Macchiato.
Yeah, that could be a little bit more orange. So it's tough because Merriam puts labels on them. Tuscanello is supposed to be like the color of a cigar wrapper. And obviously when it gets lasted, it comes out quite a bit. So it's very much a slightly darker than like natural Chrome XL color. And then Macchiato is going to be between a natural and like a light brown orange, generally speaking.
Okay. Well, maybe there wasn't, because it's a darker brown.
It's probably Tuscanello. That's generally the default. And though to be fair, the reverse waxed Tuscanello is so much better than the TPR Tuscanello. But different story for different day. Okay. It's most likely Tuscanello. Yeah, because most of the other colors, like you have walnut and then you have graphite, which are both darker colors. Graphite's like a shiny black gray color. I don't know what they call it. I think it's grigio is what they call it in Italian, but if you bought it from Rocky Mountain, it comes as it's like asphalt or graphene or something like that, or maybe graphite. And then so you got walnut, which is a very dark brown. Then you obviously have black, and then they've got kind of the more wild colors. Like they've got an olive. I have not seen jungle in TPR, but we have seen jungle in just the regular wax stuff. I think they might have had jungle in TPR at some point and they just never restocked it because it was very close to the olive. And then they have navy, amethyst. Amethyst is like a really shiny purple, and there's one other color. They had one more that I don't remember off the top of my head, but fire red. It was red. It was the what's that? Regine. Yep.
Okay. Now I don't know if it's the navy or I've got a pair of boots on order from Blackbird they call it dark blue, but it's the Merriam horse rub.
It's Oceano is what Merriam calls it, but it's navy. Yeah. And it is very dark until it's lasted. It'll lighten up a lot and last. I think one of the unique things about horse is 9 times out of 10 will lighten up with lasting and then darken with wear. Where a lot of boots, especially if they're wet lasted, don't lighten up. They tend to get darker. So it operates very much like a pull-up boot, even though there's nothing in it for pull-up. So
I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to those. I've got those and another pair from Caswell that I'm really, really looking forward to. So those are, the blue, dark blue is what they call it, the Horus Rump, the TPR. I've got it with white contrast stitching, nickel hardware, double midsole. I got a Dr. Sole half sole on it, but I don't remember which one.
All of them are good. There's a thin one, there's a thick one. They're both great.
Yep. So that's coming. And then Caswell, I've got another Carver boot that's Law Tanning's Burnt Chipton Bison.
I'll be interested in that one. I love Law Tanning, but everything I have of Law gets kind of blown out kind of quickly. Like it doesn't maintain it as an aesthetic appealing shape as I would have liked.
Well, I will tell you, the hide is not really attractive when you look at the picture.
Yeah.
The one reason I went
talking about. Yep.
Yeah, if you go to Caswell's website right now, you can find it, and you'll probably go, "What the heck was Chris thinking?" But I went on Instagram. All right,
it'll last down quite a bit. A lot of people get see what the Palisades and the Bighorn Bison look like, and they see it after lasting. It's like, wow, the color changed a lot, and the heavy, deep wrinkles and crevices from the shrinking process, a ton of that gets lasted out. It's still there, it's still noticeable, but it's not as deep and over the top as it is when the hide's just sitting there.
Yes, and that's what I'm counting on. I found some bags that were made from it, and what you have in those bags is this really contrast between kind of a darker orange to the really dark. It almost looks like I want to say like a smoke kind of effect.
Yeah. It's like a really dark brown black to an orange. Yeah, and the gradient in between. Yeah.
Yes, which I think will look really good on a lace to toe.
Yeah, because the presser foot from the sewer will touch a ton of spots that will make a ton of orange highlights throughout the boot.
Yes.
I mean, you see it a lot with Chrome XL, right? Like the darker colors of Chrome XL, anywhere that the presser foot from the sewing machine is touched is significantly lighter and almost over accentuates all the stitching. especially on like your Color 8, your Olive Chrome XL, your Timber Chrome XL, all of those. Same thing.
Yes. And I did get a contrast thread on that as well. I can't remember if I got white or tan. I think I got a tan.
Yeah, and actually, I'm a big fan of that tan khaki color, especially when it comes to blues. I think even though white looks great with blue, I think the khaki, like a pair of khakis, that khaki tan color is actually one of the better contrasting stitches. Kind of takes the edge off it a little bit, but still gives that maximum contrast.
And then I got I'm trying to think of the Dr. Soul that's, I think, the brown or rust color.
Yeah, red brown. It's probably the red brown.
The red brown.
It's 1091 red brown cork. Yep, that's the one. Yeah. The other one's the Super Grip 2, which is full rubber but quite a bit thinner, and that comes in like black, off-white, and I think just jade. It's got actually a pretty limited color spectrum. And it's shockingly that they used a new color jade in the off-white with that one instead of just going like black, brown, and whatever. But yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yes. So that one also has a double midsole, and all three of those boots have the natural midsoles and welts. So big fan of that.
Yeah, me too. I just talked about that with my Flora Night Shinky Bootines, and how that only one regret I have with that pair of boots is not doing like a natural or something different with the welt in the edge dressing and stuff, because I did it in black to keep the look sleek and everything, but like my ostrich in the natural Tolkienol looks so much better.
Right. So. Yeah, I'm going to do that Tolkienol on these. Yeah, and my thought too on the natural is, if I didn't like it, I can always make it darker.
Yeah, you can.
If I didn't care for it, that's so much easier than trying to go the other way.
Take the dark off. Yes, 100%.
Yes. So that's a little word of advice to the more crafty gentlemen out there.
Yeah,
it's easier to go from light to dark. It's a lot harder to go from dark to light if you don't care for it.
Yep. And if you're doing dark to light, chances are you're never going to be able to sand enough to get all the black out. So you're going to be doing an antique, not a natural edge dressing.
Yep.
So, all righty. I think that's covered most of it. What else would you avoid at all costs besides obviously shell cordovan? Like, what is your I will never do that. Never, ever, ever, ever. Don't even look at me again.
So I don't have anything that is that. Well, I'll never buy a pair of another Doc Martens. How's that?
There you go. There's one. Hey, we've got one.
Yes. In this heritage boot space, I can't say that there's anything that I would never do yet. I'm sure that we'll get there. There are some things, and it's more, I wouldn't buy a Jodhpur boot. And that's more because I'm a big, heavy guy. You know, I'm about 6 foot tall, 275 pounds. I have thin legs, but a big upper section. And so sleek boots do not look good. You know, I look like, barrel on sticks if I were to wear like skinny pants and sleek boots. So that's more of an aesthetic thing.
Yeah. I like Jodhpurs. I'd like them as an alternative to Chelseas that don't fit well. Personally.
Yeah. It's not that I don't like the style of boot. It just doesn't pair well with where my body is at this moment.
Yeah.
So if that makes sense. Now I am trying to lose weight, and so I could definitely see if I get down to the where my ideal weight is, wearing them.
Yeah.
So that's where I say it's not a hard and fast thing. It's more of, hey, it just is not a great fit for what I look like right now. Let me think. Is there anything else? Well, I would not get the leather soles.
Yeah. I think if you got the right leather sole, you might change your mind on that, to be 100% honest.
Probably. And I'd have to do what you did, is get like a double leather sole.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. So, anything I order. So like both my TLBs and my Carminas. So my TLBs are a pair of derbies and a pair of double strap monks, and my Carminas are actually a pair of Jodhpurs. And they're a pair of Jodhpurs in a unique way that they're actually made on one of the Chelsea lasts. So it's Chelseas with the strap, because I can't wear normal Chelseas that aren't made for me. I have the tiniest fucking lady ankles that ever did exist. I mean, it is insane how almost every pair I have that doesn't have custom uppers, my top eyelet touches. Yeah, I'm a double F width on my feet. So, but
really those wide feet, little tiny ankles.
Yeah. So I always do a double leather midsole and then a leather outsole on my dress. I have JR on all three of the Carmina TLB. That's because that's the only upgraded leather they offer. They don't offer like a Baker's or a Black Forest or a Gerberry Martin or any of that. So that's a thing, right? And then I always try to go with a flat welt. I don't mind split reverse welt, which is what a lot of them call their storm welt, which is okay. But I am not a fan of like the actual storm welt. I just talked about that recently. That's the one thing on my roll clubs that I will never, ever, ever do again is that storm welt. It's not Brian's fault. It's just the storm welt looks like shit.
Yeah,
they just look terrible.
Oh, it's an aesthetic thing for you.
Yeah, it looks fucking terrible. It's not nice. It's not good. So
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Broguing is the thing I was gonna say. I will never, ever, ever own anything with broguing ever again, even dress shoes. I've just found such an intense hatred for broguing.
I'm kind of the opposite. My favorite dress shoes are actually long wings with broguing in them.
I like long wings, just not long wings of brogues. I can't stand broguing.
I mean, it's kind of a pain when you have to do maintenance on them. Because when you use something like I use the Imperial leather balm on most things, and you have to use a brush on it before it dries, or you get little white rings inside your brogue holes.
Yep.
So when I do those, I've got a brush to get most of it out, and then occasionally I have to stick a Q-tip in them. So
it's the same shit with doing cream on them. You really got to get it out fast in a hurry. Yep.
Yes, exactly. But once you learn that, that's no big deal. And as many pairs of shoes and boots as I've restored and flipped, that's become a pretty quick thing for me.
Yeah.
So that's not a big deal.
Yeah, you're not wrong from that perspective. I just, most people are over the top with broguing or so minimalistic with it, it's ugly as hell.
Yeah. For me, at least in the places that I go, I don't see anybody that is wearing wingtips, long wings, anything with broguing. It's going to be, well, for like most of us, it's going to be cheap shoes, and it's going to be mostly derbies that people are wearing. So it's something that stands out in the circles that I'm in.
Yeah, I'll do split toe Norwegian before any day of the week before I ever touch a pair of brogues again.
So you did bring up something that I do not have an appreciation for at all, and that is the split toe. That is one thing I'm sure that if I wore them and had a pair, that I would probably gain an appreciation for them. But right now, just looking at it, that is like, I do not like it at all. The Grant Stone, what is their Ottawa boot?
Okay, that's a different style split toe Norwegian. So, in the split toe Norwegian for the dress boot, the split that goes on the front of the toe is what's called a hidden stitch, where it's stitched on the inside where you can't see it. So it just looks like a mock toe from above, even though it's a split toe Norwegian. That is a tanker style split toe Norwegian, where all the seams are visible on the outside. Where the mock toe and the front. I have one pair of boots like that, which is a pair of Renavs and Shrunken Sheiky horse rump, and they look like they look like tanker boots. But yes, no, the split toe Norwegian I'm talking about is a hidden stitch for the split toe portion.
Now you still see the leather split, right?
Yes, but it's an interior seam that you can't see very well.
Yeah, that it's the line as well. So yes, that would be less noticeable. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's probably just what I'm used to seeing, and so that's just so divergent from that. But like I said, there's things that I like now that 2 years ago I didn't like at all. So if we do this video again next year, there's going to be a lot of things that are different, and then the following year, there'll be a lot of things that are different. It's been a very quick evolution for me.
Yeah, and it is for most people. Like I said, for a lot of people, once they try something, they generally have a very different reality from what was ever in their mind, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so will I buy a new pair for my first pair? Probably not. But if I see a good price on, a pair that needs to be refurbished or something like that, I probably will pick them up just to see if I like it or not.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
That gives me a very low cost way. And if I don't, then, I'll clean them up regardless. But then I can sell them or give them away.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yep.
Alrighty, well, thank you everyone for being here on this one. This was an introduction to kind of Chris's collection. This is a little bit of experimenting with some new content, so please let us know what your thoughts on it are down below. Like, comment, subscribe, do the usuals. We'll try our best to address all the videos as they come. As I explained in the last one that I recorded, this is going to be spotty for me. No one wants to see me record from a hotel room until about the end of September. Some weeks I'll be here, some weeks I won't. Whatever plays out, plays out. This is just what we're able to make work at the current time. This video was another one of those kind of very impromptu. That's the reason Jeff's not here. But let us know what you think about this specific kind of content, because like I said, I'm really toiling with the idea of, you know, like rating other people's collections. The original concept for this video, before I brought Chris on just to talk about it, was him to send me a bunch of pictures of his collection and like kind of outline, like fill out the outline I filled out for it, and me go through and grade them. So if that's something you like to see, let us know, because that was kind of the original idea for this. Another thing that I really want to do that you just don't see on YouTube at all is like collection updates, where we see stuff a year, 2 years, 1,000 miles later, so on and so forth, that like we only really get through the Patina Thunderdome. And so much of that is like man-made introduced shit and not things that just happen naturally. There's a ton of people attempting to win that by doing all kinds of not wearing them methods versus like people who just wear their boots, right? That is like a big section of YouTube that I kind of feel like is missing in terms of like people wanting to see what the evolution of those leathers are at the end of the day, right? And I think that might be content that could maybe help get us there. And especially if anything that I've graded or we've had on before that we can see in 2 years, bam, instant like, hey, we have references to this. People see this. Maybe it's been in the back of their mind. They were curious how that one turned out. Maybe, you know, this is the answer. Or maybe it's all shit that nobody wants to watch. Don't know. That's up to you guys to let me know on that one. So I hope everyone has a great day. Enjoy. Thanks for coming on, Chris, as always. And I will see everybody in the next one.